Hi boys, welcome back. This is the last lesson of chapter 8, and honestly I think it's the easiest one because it does not involve any graphing whatsoever. You've been graphing a lot for the past few days, but as you can see as the title, you're going to be graphing f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So that should look very familiar to you because that is a quadratic function. Now, before you haven't seen the bx, you've only seen the ax squared plus c, and you graphed you graph those before, and the A makes the graph do certain things, and the C makes the graph do certain things. So now you're going to kind of see it all together, but we're not actually graphing it on a piece of graph paper. Okay, so it's pretty easy. So hopefully you find it as easy as I think it is. So let's get started. So if you look at this is an open parabola, okay? And just to clarify, again, this is something you should know, that, whoopsies. So if you look at this, a graph opens up when a is greater than 0. So that would mean when a is positive, it opened up. And then when a was negative, obviously it opened down. So I might have you actually draw these little small sketches on your homework because it might help you, but you don't really need to actually graph on a piece of graph paper. Okay, so the most important thing of this slide is that formula right there. Okay, so the vertex, like I told you before, is the most important point of any parabola. Okay, that is your starting point of your symmetry, where the left and the right sides of your parabola will match based on your vertex. So we're not going to find the vertex using a table of values anymore. We're going to find it using this formula. And this formula is right here that I have circled. It's the opposite of b over 2a, so negative b over 2a. And you need to have this memorized, okay? But trust me, it's super easy. And that'll look familiar to you in our last chapter. And you're actually going to figure out, well, not figure out, but also know where that comes from. Okay, so our last chapter is a chapter that pretty much encompasses a lot of the information I taught you this entire year. Okay, so this right here is what you use to find your x value of your vertex. And then finding the y part of your vertex is, again, very easy. Okay, and then the axis of symmetry obviously is the dotted line that goes through your vertex. That is the easiest thing to find, and there's no work for that. Once you have your vertex, your axis of symmetry is super easy to write down. Okay, so here we go. So we have this function right here, g of x. Now the first thing I want you to do is I want you to write down a, b, and c. So you have a, you have b, and you have c. So actually, write those down. And that's going to be very helpful to you in our last chapter. So we need to find the vertex and the axis of symmetry of this graph without even graphing it. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the vertex. Now, just so we can visualize what this is going to look like, if you look at your A is 2, so it's a positive number, meaning that it's going to open up. So that's a good visualization of what it's going to at least somewhat look like. So our job is to find our vertex right there. So we're going to write down our formula. So negative b over 2a. The negative can be on the top or bottom. Usually I put on the top. And we're going to fill in our numbers. So the b came from our 8, so I put it down here. And the a was 2, so I put it down here. So if you do PEMDAS, I'm going to bring the negative to the top. So negative 8 divide by 4. So it looks like x is negative 2. So the negative 2 is the x coordinate of your vertex. So you have half of the point. Now we need to take that, plug it in to get the y part of your vertex. And we're going to use that. We're going to find that by using the function g of x. So there's our g of x. So we know that x is negative 2. So we're going to plug it in right there and right there. So there we go. I plugged them all in. Now be very careful with your, PEMDAS. So if I do that, we're going to get 2 times 4. That's where the 8 came from. And this would be negative 16. So now we're going to work left to right, again, following PEMDAS. It looks like you get negative 9, which is the y value. So your vertex is -2, -9. So we have half our answer. And now we just have to find our axis of symmetry. But one key point is your vertex needs to be 100% correct. So if you down here at the -2, so right here, let's say you forgot that negative, you already have the x wrong of your vertex. And if you use the wrong x, obviously your y would be wrong as well. So you really need to not make any mistakes with your arithmetic. Okay, so now we have our vertex, and the axis of symmetry is super easy to find out. So again, same problem. Now we're going to find the axis of symmetry. So our vertex, write that down again, I do believe was -2, -9. Let me just double check. I'm correct. So the axis of symmetry always is an equation. X equals, well, that's x, -2. Look how easy that was. Okay, now if we actually graph this, like I said, it's going to be an upwards parabola. So -2, -9, again, somewhere down here. So this is what your graph would somewhat look like. Now, I do want to refresh your memory about domain and range. So domain is all real numbers because it's going to encompass all of your x values of your graph, but the range has a limit. So your range deals with your y values. Now, if you look at your vertex right down here, it's -2, -9. This is x, this is y. The lowest y value is a -9. And you can't go lower than -9, but you can go higher than -9 because your graph is opening up. So your range is y is greater than or equal to -9. Okay, like I said, your graph is opening up, so it's encompassing all of these positive y values. Okay, so again, this is just a little review because you will have to, write this down for me in the future. So let's do another one. So different function now. So we have r of x. So again, let's write down our a, b, and c. So a, b, and c. Let's do a little sketch. So a is a +3. So means it's going to be opening up. And I need to find my little vertex down there. So there is my formula again. Now you don't have to keep writing it. If you know it, you can obviously just fill your numbers in. So like I did, fill my numbers in. Be careful though. B is -6. So I plugged it in, but I still have the outside negative. So x equals, these negatives now will just become a positive. So you have a +6 divided by, well, 2 times 3 is 6. So it looks like x equals 1. Now, again, that is the x coordinate of your vertex. So you have half your answer. Now we need to plug it back in to find the y. So we're going to use our r function. And we're going to plug in the 1 here and here. So there we go. Follow PEMDAS. And it looks like you get what? 3 times 1. That's where you got the 3. And 6 times 1 is 6. Work left to right. And it looks like your y is 2. So vertex is 1, 2. Now, I think a lot of you can probably find your axis of symmetry without me even changing slides, but I'm going to do it anyway. So axis of symmetry, well, our vertex was 1, 2. And this is the x, this is the y. So axis of symmetry, again, it's an equation, is x equals 1. Now let's do a little graph here. Like I said, your a was a positive number, so it opened up. So let's actually see where that opened up. So we draw a little graph here. Let's do 1, 2. So 1, up 2. So look, there's our graph. So I can actually just erase this one. Now we need to talk about domain and range. So let me just label this. This is 1, 2. So domain, as it has been and pretty much will always be for these parabolas that we're doing, is all real numbers. But your range, well, here we go. We got y. Now we got x and you got y. So you know it's going to involve a 2. So as you see, the graph is opening up. So your y values are getting positive and positive and positive. They're not going down because the graph is opening up. So y is greater than or equal to 2. Okay? Now our last example is obviously going to be a parabola that's opening down. So here we go. Here's our new function. Notice your a, b, and c. So a is a negative. Okay. So a is -6. So obviously my little graph is going to be opening down. And our job is to find the vertex. So there's my formula. Plug them in. So b and then -6. Now I'm going to jump the negative to be with the 24. And I'm going to do the bottom, which is 2 times -6, which is -12. Obviously, the negatives are going to cancel out, and you get x equals +2. And that is the x coordinate of your vertex, like we've been getting. Now, we're going to use the function right here, and we're going to plug in 2 for here and here. Okay, and again, it's very, very important that you got the 2 correct, because if you said it with a -2, well, then you're wrong. So pretty much your entire problem was wrong because you made one teeny tiny mistake. Okay, so plug in your 2's. And if we do this, we get -6 times 4. That's where the 24 came from. And then 24 times 2, which is where the 48 came from. You're going to work left to right. So y equals 4. So your vertex is 2, 4 is your vertex. Okay, so now let's change slides and we'll find our axis of symmetry. So vertex was 2, 4. Let me just double check that. Yep, 2, 4. So axis of symmetry is x equals 2 because that was your x value. Domain, well, let's draw a little graph. So obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's going to be right here. Because a was negative, it's going to be opening down. So we're trying to see about the range. So you know domain is all real numbers. Now the range is going to be y. It's going to be 4 because this is the y in your vertex, and your parabola is opening down, so it's going to be less than or equal to 4. Okay, now the last thing involves maximum and minimums, which basically just talk about your vertex. So the maximum is if your parabola opens down, it's the highest point, and it's a minimum or the lowest point if it's opening up. Okay, so I'm going to give you this function k, and you need to tell me if it's a minimum or maximum value, and then find me the value. So the first thing you need to do is, let's think about this. A is -4, so it's going to be opening down. So your vertex is actually going to already be a maximum point. So you know that it's going to be a maximum, okay? So we're going to find our vertex after we, write those numbers down. So find your vertex. There we go. Plug in your numbers. Those are going to become a positive. So x equals 24 over -8. So it looks like x is -3. So there's our x coordinate. We're going to use our function. We're going to plug in our -3 into here and here. There we go. So y is 17. So our vertex is -3, 17. Now it's a maximum point. So the maximum value is going to be 17. So this is your answer because it's the y value. It's the highest point of your parabola, and you always take the y value. Okay, so extremely easy. All right, now I just want to show you one more thing. As we look at this table, this kind of helps it all. So if your parabola opened up, here's a little sketch, then obviously this would be a minimum value. And if it opened down, it would be a maximum value. So just something for you to look at. All right, and your assignment is a worksheet. So I'll see you next time, boys. Take care.